My next guest is Michael Gronager, co-founder and CEO of Chainalysis. Chainalysis is a blockchain analysis company providing leading anti-money laundering solutions for cryptocurrency businesses, financial institutions, and government agencies. I recently sat down with them. Take a listen. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about some of the developments that we've seen in the cryptocurrency space and the role you and your company play in all of that. And just to get started off the top, over the past few years, we've seen this explosion of interest in cryptocurrencies, both in the amount of them in circulation and the different products being offered. Why do you think we've seen such a drastic jump in just the past couple of years?
So I think the way that I usually look at crypto is that we are basically building an operating system for finance, and finance never had one. And now we see that it's possible to build and recreate and innovate in new ways financial instruments that we never had before. And also, as I said, copy other existing financial instruments and put them on chain. And that means that we can lower the fees, we can lower the cost to build those instruments. And it creates a lot of financial opportunities. And we already seen some of that, for example, with DeFi, where that has been a core driver. We've seen it with representation of ownership, initially in the digital space with NFTs. And there's two sides of driving this. One of them is, of course, like the actual new instruments that you can gain access to. And also, you here is everyone. It's not tied to a small group of elite investors that are high net individuals and so on. It's basically everyone in the world. So it also creates like something that we've never seen before in the world where everyone have access to finance. And then of course there's at the same time, I believe that this will only grow. So I better get into it now. And that's why a lot of retail as well as like established institutional investors want to enter the space.
I'm really glad you mentioned that last part because we've seen, a lot of different financial firms, a lot of different companies get into this space, largely because of the, huge amount of consumer interest. But, obviously over the past few days, we've seen quite a bit of volatility. And, like any investment product, whether it's a stock or a bond or anything, there's always a certain amount of risk and due diligence that somebody needs to take before they jump in. You've been in this space for a while. So if, for someone who might be thinking about how they want to get into the crypto space, what do you think is important for them to keep in mind as they're navigating this really broad world of options?
So I think it's step number one. It's high risk, right? We are entering a market that's high risk. Even it's today, I think it's a good reminder to say, I know last week or so, it's a good reminder that the established stock market is extremely volatile. A lot of things can happen. We look at it as something that is destined to grow and take small corrections. But if you look at a lot of the companies that gained over COVID the last 2 years, they basically got erased all their gain on the equity side in a matter of a week. And I think that that's an important learning lesson. So if you invest anything, be sure that you do this with the mindset of long-term gain, 10 years. You need to be able to afford to lose all the money tomorrow. So think about it that way and then build a strategy about what you're doing. Don't react to the market. Then you're never going to win or beat the market. Build a strategy, do what you think you like. And I would say from my personal opinion on picking shares, I pick what I use myself and I love to do. And then I believe that will grow. And if it doesn't, well, I still try to support something that I love. And I think that's the most important piece when you lose money on something and you need to get to peace with that.
For sure. Now, thinking about some of these public policy issues too, for the longest time in Washington, one of the main concerns about cryptocurrency is how it could be potentially used for money laundering, financial crimes, sanctions evasion. But your company plays a pretty interesting role in trying to stop that. And I was wondering if you could, talk to me a little bit about what you do.
Yes, so what we do at its core in Chainalysis, we've developed an algorithm that are able to go through billions of transactions in a blockchain and basically sort them into groups of this is one entity, this is another entity, this is a third entity, and they're interact and then identify the interactions with those. On top of that, we gave names to a lot of the entities out there. So it also means that we are able to empower government agencies to follow the money. So basically conduct a follow the money investigation in the digital world. And then through our attributions and through collaborations with the industry, the agencies are now able to find identifying information for individuals. And that could be, for example, be connected to a ransomware attack. It could be connected to terrorist financing. It could be other kind of drug trafficking or human trafficking that would be identified that way. Chainalysis works today with more than 150 public sector agencies in more than 35 countries in the world. So we have a very broad reach. And I think that's an important piece because crypto is global. And in order to solve cases on a global scale, it's really important to be part of that network, be able to share data with others, and be able to conduct these investigations.
So when you go about these investigations, a lot of folks, they heard of a blockchain, they've heard of a cryptocurrency, but they may not be so sure about how they connect with each other. Can you tell me about how exactly you could go down a blockchain or throughout a blockchain to find where certain money is going, or if a certain someone who should not be involved in a transaction is?
Yes. So it's again back to being able to attribute the different transactions. So if you look at a blockchain, think about it as a spreadsheet with 3 columns: sender A to receiver B, and then on top of that, there's a value in the last column. And then there's just a billion rows, and basically all of that is public. But the thing that's not public is that I don't know who sender and receiver is. I can just see they have like basically a random number in front of them. What Chainalysis then does is basically identifying those random numbers and group them together. And that now means that we can put labels on each of these transactions by doing so. So now I can say, oh, this transaction came from this exchange. I know what exchange it is, and it's operating out of Singapore. Now I can see that it was sent to a ransomware provider that Chainalysis, a ransomware campaign that Chainalysis identified. So now we know this is a ransomware payment, and that can be used further on. Then when it received the ransomware, like a collector, the ransomware operator or attacker, then we can see like a few weeks later, they're trying to exit those funds. They might now send them through a mixer and try to obfuscate it. We might be able to look through that one. On the other side of that, they might send it to an exchange. And now on that exchange, we can go and ask, or law enforcement can go and ask, who deposited those funds? Because we have a suspicion that this might be the ransomware campaign owner. And now that person can be identified.
Now, when it comes to the broader public policy picture too, sanctions evasion and financial crimes is just one part, but there's also a lot of concern in DC about how cryptocurrencies fit into the framework that the federal government has right now for stocks, commodities, other investment products. And I was wondering, what you think lawmakers and policymakers should be focused on as they're trying to get a sense of how to write rules to make cryptocurrencies safer and more reliable and transparent.
So I think the way to think about this is always to think about it long term. What is the direction that we are taking? If you go back 50 years or so, then financial instruments and the stock market and securities and so on was kind of reserved for the few. And that was part of the technology, how you could market them, how you could basically buy and sell them. You might needed a piece of paper to actually record that someone bought something. This has changed completely. All of this can move way faster today. And you see like platforms like Robinhood and so on, retail investors are already trading fractions and stock and so on, and get access to financial instruments in a way we never seen it before. And then what happens when the price of creating these financial instruments is going down? That means that you will see them applied to way more use cases. So for example, one of my favorite examples here is that we've seen that in the past, we have a secondary market for theater tickets. Is that actually a security? Well, no one really cared because that market was relatively small and well understood and was not connected to the rest of the market. But if you move that on the blockchain and we start to resell a lot of things secondary, then it becomes securities and it's marketed that way. And then the question becomes, is this good or bad? Is it actually serving the right purpose and moving things in the right direction? For the secondary market on theater tickets, it's totally fine and it's good. And it might be the case for many things. So maybe we need to think through, are the rules that we are creating or applying from the old world the same that we should apply in the new world? And I think that's the right way to think about it and try to analyze the why and what are we actually looking for here. And there might emerge like 2 or 3 new categories that we haven't seen before.
Right. Well, Michael, that's all the time we've got today, but thank you so much for sharing your insight both on the past and the present and future of crypto. And it's been great to speak with you today.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.